General Milley, was the DOD in charge of making decisions about troop strength in this withdrawal, or were you in a support role?
Let me put it this way. You talking about the NEO or what
I'm
part of the
talking
mission
about,
are you talking
well, let me just go back even further.
Okay.
In January of this year, were you of the opinion, in your professional military judgment, that we should have maintained 2,500 troops, U.S. troops, in support of the coalition effort and contractors in Afghanistan?
Yeah, my assessment that I read in the opening statement remained consistent.
Did that professional military opinion change over the course of the next few months?
Not until a presidential decision, and I rendered my opinions, and there was a fulsome debate on all of that. And once decisions are made, then I'm expected to execute lawful orders.
And you've made that very clear. So my question is, when the troop levels were ordered to be drawn down to 0 and first stopping at 650, as General McKenzie outlined, was that your decision or General McKenzie's decision to draw down to 650?
It was a task and then a troop-to-task analysis, with the task being to go to 0, but you also have to defend the embassy. So how many?
I'm thinking about the chain of command. Somebody's making decisions about troop levels, and my understanding is it was not the DOD. It was the State Department or the White House. I want to know who said we're going to go from 2,500 to 650 and just protect Kabul and the State Department.
It was a military analysis that 600 to 700 could adequately defend the embassy until contractors come up, and that was then approved up through the chain and approved at the highest levels.
Who made the decision?
I would say that that decision was made in a national security consultative process by the highest levels of our government.
General McKenzie, did you receive advice from General Miller in the end of 20 and early 21 related to troop levels in Afghanistan?
Ranking Member, I did.
What was that advice?
The advice, his view and my view were essentially the same view. And my view was that we needed to maintain about 2,500 and that we also needed to work with our coalition partners who had about 6,000 troops in there, NATO and other core countries that would remain there.
Did your professional military opinion change over the course of the spring?
It did not.
Did you communicate? Well, I know you communicated to the President. You said you did. Were you present in the room when General Miller's recommendations were relayed to the President?
Without going, General Miller was present in executive sessions that involved myself, the Secretary here, the Chairman, and the President.
And those recommendations of the parties, as Secretary Austin said, were debated fully in that meeting.
They were debated fully. I felt that my opinion was heard with great thoughtfulness by the President.
Well, you know, Secretary Austin just made the point that there was a fulsome debate of the pros and cons and the costs and risks. Yet, in August of this year, President Biden told George Stephanopoulos in an interview, no one said that to me, referring to keeping some 2,500 troops in Afghanistan. Was that an inaccurate statement by the President?
Sir, I am not going to comment on a statement by the President.
Okay. General McKenzie, in mid-June, your commanders on the ground were informing you that things were deteriorating, as you testified a little while ago. At that time, in your judgment, you should stop withdrawal and increase forces and or proceed with the retrograde. What did you decide at that time?
We decided to proceed with the retrograde.
Okay. Was were you ordered to do that by the President?
We followed our original we had original orders. We followed those orders through to completion.
Okay. Was it the President's orders?
My orders come from the Secretary of Defense through to the President, so it's a very short chain of command for me.
Okay. Secretary Austin, on the 23rd, you told this committee that you had developed a very detailed plan to conduct safe, orderly, and responsible withdrawal, and were executing that plan. On August 18th, the President said, quote, "The idea that somehow there was going to be a way that we could have gotten out with chaos ensuing, I don't know how that happens," close quote. How do you reconcile those discrepancies between what you assured the Congress and what the President's telling us?
Thank you, sir. First of all, in terms of the withdrawal of our troops and the retrograde of equipment, that plan as developed by General Miller and General McKenzie was executed as planned. And all of our equipment was retrograded, and we drew down the force that we wanted to draw down to that very small force that you saw at the embassy at the very end there. The chaos that ensued followed the collapse of the military and the collapse of the government. And when those two things happen, then it was going to be a chaotic situation.
And the collapse of the government and the collapse of the military was solely responsibility of this administration. I know y'all are trying to be careful politically, but it was the State Department and the White House that told you how to make those drawdown of troops from 2,500 to 650 to 0. It was the speed with which they done it, that they carried out that order. That's what caused the chaos that we have. If they'd allowed the DOD to be in a command situation, we wouldn't have had this problem. General McKenzie's testified that the only reason he couldn't keep Bagram was because he had to draw down to 650 troops, and his primary orders were to keep Hamid Karzai and the State Department safe. We just have to admit this was the State Department and the White House that caused this catastrophe, not the Defense Department. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Landry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, and I want to thank our witnesses for your testimony today and for your service to our nation. My constituents and I have obviously a lot of questions about the planning that led